My name is Charles. I am a writer for Marvel Comics. I also wrote for DC Comics, and I do many of my own stories as well. What I'd like to talk about today is a little bit of how I got into that job, what I did before that, how it works, and then maybe take questions from you guys, because as students, I'm sure you have many questions about careers in writing and superheroes and all of this stuff. Before I started writing comic books, I was a lawyer. And when I was doing that, I liked it. I did immigration work for many years. But I also loved all of these great characters like, Daredevil and Star Wars and Batman and all of these things like that. Being a lawyer is a great career. There's many things that are good about it, but it is not very creative in many ways. And for me, it was important to have creativity in my life as much as I could. I wanted hopefully my entire life to be full of creativity, nothing else. And obviously I think since you are studying what you're studying, it's mostly animation, video games, writing, things like that. You also want to have your lives filled with as much creativity as possible. Now the problem sometimes with creative careers is money, of course, because they don't always pay the same way as like being a lawyer. So when I started thinking about getting into writing more seriously, I always thought it would just maybe be like a hobby, something on the side, because I had a family and bills to pay and all of things like that. But in America, comics, anyone can do comics who wants to do comics. And all you need is a story, and if you can draw it, that's good. If you can't draw it, then you find someone to draw it and maybe pay them, or they're your friend, whatever. But anyone can make their own comic, which is, I'm sure it's the same anywhere. All you need is paper and a pen. So I started making my own comics. I can't draw, I'm terrible. I'm sure everyone in this room is much better than I am at drawing, but I can write. And so I started writing small stories, very, very short stories, like 2 pages, 4 pages, and finding people who would draw them for me. And I started going to comic conventions like Montevideo Comics, but obviously in the States, so New York Comic-Con, Dallas Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, these big shows. Because comics in the States are very tight network. There aren't that many people who do it, and so you need to understand the entire, like all of the business, from the low-level people to the top people. You need to know who everybody is, recognize them, meet them, talk to them so they know you. So I had these little stories, these 2-page, 4-page, like several of them, and I would take them to these conventions and I would give them to people and make friends. And then eventually someone said, I like these, maybe do you have something longer you could show me? I did have an idea for a longer story that was about a luchador, the wrestlers with the masks, so I created what's called a pitch document, which is about 10 pages with some art explaining what the whole story would be. And so I was lucky. There's a lot of luck in comics. Anybody who does comics is very lucky, both because it's fun and because it's hard to get in. But I was lucky, and a publisher, a very, very small publisher, said, we want to make this book. And that was 2009 when that happened. And the book was made with an artist friend, and it came out in March of 2009. It's called Strongman. So now you have a book, and what do you do with it? Because making your own little comic, I think it sold, I don't know, 500 copies, which in the United States is tiny, But if you have 500 people who are going to read it, all you need is one person who's the right person to read it. And for me, because I had spent so much time going to these conventions and meeting people and making a network, one of the right people was willing to read Strongman. And so that person was another writer named Nick Spencer. Maybe you know him, maybe you don't, but he introduced me to another man who at the time ran a big company called Image Comics in the United States. Image Comics does Walking Dead, they do Saga, they do some of my other books, they do a lot of, they're very big companies, so it was an important meeting. And they agreed to publish another book of mine called 27. And so from there, it was just you climb the ladder. Each book gives you the next book, gives you the next book, gives you the next book, until eventually DC Comics came and asked me if I would write their book Swamp Thing. Yeah, I forget the name of Swamp Thing here. It's in Spanish. It's like El Hombre de Plantana. Yeah, Plantano, something like that. I don't know. Yeah, but fun book. It's about a plant man. He's pretty great. So I started working there, and then. The best way to get a job at Marvel Comics is to get a job at DC Comics, because they all try to steal each other's writers. And so I started doing a little work for Marvel. I was working for both at the same time, which is almost scandalous a little bit. But then Marvel asked me to do a book called The Death of Wolverine. You know Wolverine? And so I got to kill that guy. But to give me that job, Marvel said, you have to stop working for DC. No more DC if we're going to let you do this big book. And so I thought about it, and I said yes. So since then, that was 2013, I've been only working for Marvel and some of my own books. And now I get to write Daredevil. I'm writing books for Star Wars. It's wonderful. It's the best job ever. And it's so good for me that even a couple years ago, I stopped being an abogado. Which my family was a little like, are you sure? But it's been really good since then, and I love doing the job. So that's how I got in, and I think that the main thing that I like to tell students whenever I have these talks, usually not being translated to Spanish, but is that all I did was I decided that it's what I wanted, and then I just didn't stop. Because you can, let's say you're starting from nothing, right? You can teach yourself skill, and you can make connections. You know, you can make yourself into somebody who can have professional level skills. So, and what I mean by that is, I think to some degree, talent is like a myth almost, because work equals skill more than talent equals skill. So you can make yourself into the best animator, writer, designer, whatever you want to be, just with the application of work and time. But what you cannot get that way is will, is desire, is deciding that this is what you're going to do no matter what happens. So that has to come from you, and I think that's what happened with me. I decided that I wanted my life to be only creativity, as much creativity as possible. I decided that I was just going to keep every decision I made would hopefully push me in that direction, and then here we are today. I'm talking to you guys in Uruguay. So that's my story. There's one other funny thing that is interesting for me about this trip in particular. I have my first novel is coming out in April. It's called The Oracle Year, and this is my first time in Uruguay, but that book, The Oracle Year, has a big section that is set here in Montevideo. And the reason why I picked Montevideo, and this is like 2 or 3 years ago that I did this, is because I wanted a place that not very many people in the United States knew very much about, which I apologize for. I know that's not nice to say. But it's true. You know, this is far away from America. It's beautiful. I've only been here one day, but I love it so much so far. So when I was researching the story, I looked up Montevideo to understand it and hopefully get it right. And so I set scenes at Hotel Carrasco and Teatro Solis and along the Rambla, the beach, right? So, but I had never seen any of these places. So I just did my best. And now on this trip, I'm getting to see these places for the first time, which is very fun. And the good thing is that I feel like I got them pretty correct. I will make a few little tweaks to the manuscripts now that I've seen these places, but I was pretty close, which is good. Thank you for letting me use your city in my book. I appreciate it.